Treyarch is missing like the biggest gold mine possible because like the way that Destiny does its world's first raid races, they give the winning team a literal WWE style raid belt and they give them all this cool like admiration accomplishment. Like I've seen people make whole careers out of becoming world's first raiders. I feel like Treyarch has just been throwing so hard. Like they need to do this.
Okay, we gotta dive into this in some more detail. First of all, just introduce yourself for the people at home. What's your name? What do you do? What's your deal?
Sure. My name is Evan F 1997. I cover a lot of the Destiny community's stories. So anything from world's first raid races to like puzzles and how the community came together to solve some of the craziest ARGs that have ever been made. Some of the craziest community stories from things like getting an exotic weapon out of a raid through a whole puzzle. How people, including myself, stayed up for 6 days straight to crack a puzzle and save a weapon from a different timeline and bring it into the main game. Like it was, there's been some crazy ones.
Damn. Okay, so you're like a historian of the not just the narrative in the game, but more so the sort of meta narrative of players playing the game.
Yes, it's more like if there's a lore master, there's like a librarian, and like I would consider myself somewhat of like a librarian with also a review and sort of a critic of where games in the live service space and like Destiny have been. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, but I think I got mostly known for doing like world's first raid race coverage and also like community stories of how the Destiny community did some of the craziest things that have been a part of gaming.
Okay, amazing. So for sort of structure here, let's do this then. Let's get to zombies in a little bit, but before we get to breaking down where you tap in with that, because you have a bunch of zombies experience as well. First, let's just maybe go on a little journey through like a 5 minute maybe history of Destiny raids as a thing in game, and what the sort of solves have been like over the years, and how Destiny kind of treats and Bungie treats the people that get their worlds first and participate in those hunts.
So Destiny is a lot like it definitely learned a lot from Easter eggs in Black Ops 1 and 2, and then Destiny came out before Black Ops 3.
Yeah.
So it definitely took that format of how puzzle solving was done in a team setting, but instead of like holding a crawler, the whole dynamic of solving an Easter egg step is purely what the raid mechanic is. So in the very first raid called the Vault of Glass, all the way back in 2014, it was pretty much like discovery was the main element. It wasn't really a race per se. It was more, hey, we threw this raid activity in, let's see what they think. And the flow of a raid is typically like high action encounter, maybe a boss fight, then some downtime to get to the next area, and then more puzzle solving and team coordination to pull off the next encounter. And then you get loot every single time that you progress, and it flows into Destiny's chart. Now, over the years, Destiny would then embrace the raid race mark with its raid called Last Wish in Destiny 2. That's when raid racing really got acknowledged by Bungie, because that's when they started doing the raid race belts.
Was
They
that the
gave us-
first one?
That was the first one. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so
Yeah.
there had been raids up until so Destiny 1 took place over what, like 4 years, something like that?
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, so 3 years, a bunch of DLCs in there, each of which had raids, and I'm sure people were racing to complete them, or was that not even really a thing at the time?
Yeah, no, people were racing after the very first one, but it was
Okay.
like a hardcore community thing, not like a entire community watches this event thing.
Right, and so then Destiny 2 came out, and Last Wish was several DLCs into Destiny 2, is that right?
It was the second major DLC, but it was the fourth raid into Destiny 2.
Okay, perfect. So just being in Zombies' mindset, right, and sort of projecting out into what that would look like in Destiny world, it's kind of weird to think that like you'd only really start getting lean in from the devs on the 4th DLC, when normally in zombies things are ending, right? But obviously,
Right.
Destiny 2 is a game that has had its DLC take place over the course of 6 or 7 years. So it having a new kind of pinnacle moment 4 DLCs in is not actually that crazy in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, continue. So the Last Wish raid, or is it just called Last Wish?
It's just called Last Wish.
Last Wish comes out, and it's the second major expansion for the game, and they decide to sort of take things to the next level with the way that they do the support of the racers, right?
Yeah, so basically Last Wish. So up until this point, there was like, all right, teams would race for the world's first like accomplishment and maybe to get guides out, which sounds a lot like what the zombies
That's
faced.
familiar.
Yep. The race to get the guide out was the main reason that a lot of people raced. Also, like some teams just really like the competition and the fun of it. But at Last Wish, they were like, okay, this is a new era for Destiny. We're going to go all in. This is going to be the hardest raid we've ever made and the biggest raid. And it was. It was the longest raid. I think off the top of my head, the raid race ended in 18 hours and 49 minutes. And that was due mostly to a puzzle encounter in the raid and being 40 levels under what the competition or what the actual raid was. Like there was not like a special mode. But there was a very much a level cap, and everybody was racing as fast as they could to level up. People weren't ready. They were 40 levels under. One team ends up beating the raid, but what was really significant is Last Wish gave all sorts of crazy things. So the raid belt we discussed, that's like one of the coolest things ever. And then they also gave out an emblem if you beat the raid in 24 hours. It was a special emblem that was time gated to, hey, if you beat this thing within 24 hours, like you will get this emblem and it's exclusive. And right now there's only 2 teams in the world that ever cleared that raid in 24 hours. And there's a big meme with Destiny's largest creator named Datto. There's a big meme that because his team finished 2 minutes after the 24-hour mark, there's a meme that's called 2402. Because they were 2 minutes late to finish it.
2 minutes. Oh, that's
2 minutes. And
soul
they didn't
crushing.
get it. So it's like they were 2 minutes late. And then after that, Bungie was like, oh, crap. Like, this raid was really cool, but it's also too hard for a lot of people. And me personally, since I'm just like a masochist, like, I want it to be as hard as possible. So I was like, no, don't do this. The next raid they made too easy. So then they were like, okay, we made it too hard, then too easy. The third one up, though, they invented a new mode called Contest Mode, where the players will always stay 20 levels under the raid. And like that was a good middle ground that they've used since.
So that was debuted for Last Wish or no?
No, so Contest Mode was debuted for a raid called Crown of Sorrows, 2 raids after Last Wish.
2 raids late. Okay, got you. So Last Wish was when Bungie leaned in and they were like, we want to make the race a big deal.
Yeah.
But then they continued to kind of iterate on their formula for how they did that, I guess. And there was also, not to, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but aren't there also jackets?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
So if you beat the raid in the first week, you'll get like a discount code to buy an exclusive jacket. The jackets are really cool. I live in Texas, so like it's way too hot to have those jackets.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry about forgetting to mention that. But yeah, the jackets are also a thing that you can buy from their store afterwards. They're not like awarded to people, but there's like a discount code to get a jacket that then you can put your name on. Like Bungie basically leaned really hard into the side of like giving people a real life accomplishment for their in-game accomplishment, and the emblems, the 24-hour emblems that we mentioned, like those are, in my opinion, what the larger community races for, because they know like, hey, I may not get world's first, but I can at least tune in and see like how to do this thing, and like maybe I can finish this within the first 24 hours. I can like get my team on and we can go for this thing. And it's like a weird kind of like Christmas tradition for it, right? Like I know I know, Milo, that you feel the exact same way with zombies when there's like an Easter egg, but it's like getting that reward for also doing it from the devs. Like it's like them saying to you like, hey, we care enough that we're making the new zombies maps. Like imagine if Liberty Balls was like Liberty Balls, like extra hard balls. You know what I mean? Like what if Liberty Balls was like 5 times harder than what you're used to, and you have to solve the Easter egg within that first 24 hours to get a special calling card in zombies. Like, wouldn't that be so nice?
Let's dive into that a little more deeply. So contest mode inherently, for people that haven't played Destiny, and I'll try and keep it brief even for those who have, essentially everyone, when a new DLC comes out, is rushing to level up as much as they can to try and get to like the max level that's possible in the game. And so what contest mode does is it means that no matter what leveling you do and no matter how high in the levels you get, inside the raid encounter itself, you will always be, effectively, to put it into zombies terms, fighting tier 3 zombies despite only having tier 2 pack-a-punch. Like, you can't be at the level that the zombies are at. You can't be at the level that the raid boss is at, because it basically just blanks out that ability for you to get up there and says you have to be 20 levels lower, right?
Yeah. It's like you hit a certain level in the game and they say, okay, that's the max level that you can even be before like contest. Like, just be in this range of levels and contest will apply, right?
And so
like,
then
otherwise you'll be even under.
Yeah, so like then that affects your damage scaling, that affects the power of your supers, like that affects all the output that you have as a player. Is all dependent on that level relative to what the level of the enemies is. And so the Liberty Balls example here is, imagine if we played Liberty Balls, but within the first 24 hours, every zombie had double health, for instance, and there was no extra way for the player to get more firepower than normal. It's just, we just had to deal with double health zombies just for 24 hours while trying to solve that Easter egg.
Yeah.
And I think that would be so freaking cool, man.
It's really cool, man. Like, that's the, like, I will be an avid critic of how Bungie has mishandled a lot of things in Destiny, but the raid races, there's a reason why when it's raid day, everybody is on. It's like Christmas for so many people, because they celebrate it and they treat the players to like such a good experience that day. Like, those are the main days.
It really, it's something that I've sort of seen from afar, and I've always been like, damn, that's, even just the jacket alone, I'm like, damn, that's so cool. The fact that I can set time aside to do this in that first week and get my Easter egg-like activity, the raid, done, and then get what in some cases is really sick jackets as well. Like, some of them I'm not such a big fan of, but some of the jackets, I think the Last Wish jacket was so cool, and such a fun way to show your fandom of the game, show the graph that you put in to make it happen, show that you were there. Like, it's just crossing a line into real life that is so wonderful. And I mean, I'm racking my brains here, but I don't think there's ever been anything like that in zombies ever. I could be mistaken, but I can't think of a single instance. The only thing that maybe comes to mind that's even tangentially related is there was a charity auction type thing in I want to say late 2015 maybe, where it was an Omaze campaign, if you've ever heard of Omaze.
No.
It's just like a charity platform, I think. Okay. And the top winner of the charity campaign there were 2 separate campaigns. The Omaze campaign, they got put into the game as a zombie. So I don't know if they were like facial, like mocapped, or I don't know exactly what it was, but they were put in the game. Another winner got put in. There's a grave that's dedicated to them in one of the maps. And then there was a separate thing where there was a charity bidding type situation, and the folks that won the bidding got to play one of the DLC maps, Der Eisendrache, early. So
that's cool.
Those have been cool, like real life kind of interactions and spillovers a little bit, but they've never been related to the Easter egg hunts, and they've never been related to an in-game accomplishment unlocking something in that way.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool too. Like, not to gas it up a little bit more, but I mean,
gas it up, bro.
Dude, they also do this thing that's like right. So like, for example, with Last Wish, why it was even bigger of a deal is like right when Last Wish gets beaten, the winning team like everybody got because the raid exotic, which is like basically the wonder weapon for the raid is the best way to put it. But you only can get it either from a quest in the game or from like the final chest, right? Like everybody does their attempts for like that raid's wonder weapon, that raid's exotic. Everybody who beat the raid in the like that first team back in Last Wish, that very first team, they all got the wonder weapon to drop as well. Like that was another reward.
Wonder weapon,
guaranteed wonder weapon that they could bring into PvP. They could bring into like the story missions, the campaign, or the strikes, everything else. Like they could bring it in there. But and that's amazing on its own, because who doesn't want to shoot the wonder weapon in every activity after you beat the raid? But it's also after they beat the raid, a cutscene played that like basically acknowledged what they did. It didn't say the team players' names, but it was like one team went in and beat her. The name of the raid boss was Riven, but then it was like Riven unleashed a curse on the Dreaming City, and now it's taken, and now it's even worse. And so now you got to go in and save the Dreaming City, which was the main location of that DLC. You got to go save the Dreaming City and like fix its problems. And it like basically them beating the raid unlocked new campaign missions, new strikes, or a new strike, a new PvP map, a new Gambit map at the time, which was like a PvEVP mode. And the very first ever Destiny dungeon called the Shattered Throne. Like
So again,
everywhere.
To make it abundantly clear as well, they completed their raid. They did their raid, and that was just a team of 6, and they finished it off. And then that cutscene was unlocked for all players. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
And then all of those extra activities and this Dreaming City that had like a curse on it and everything as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was entirely unlocked by those players. It wasn't like, oh, there's a new DLC. You can go to map A or map B, and that's lovely. Woo! It was, there's only map A, and everyone jumps into map A, and then this one team finishes the Easter egg on map A, and suddenly there's map B just there. Like, it's, I'm always blown away by that story. And I think it's something that Destiny's even done incredibly well with, what I would sort of use the analog of side quests, but you'd call them like, what do they call them in Destiny? Maybe just exotic quests, maybe?
I guess.
There have been a couple of those over the years that I don't know the full stories of. Some of them I haven't been able to play through, but one of them was the unlocking of the quest for, I think it was for is it Last Whisper?
Oh,
the sniper?
Do you mean Whisper of the Worm?
Yeah, and, Whisper. So that, like, the story, as I recall, is essentially something got patched into the game, and everyone was like, "What the hell is this?" And no one could figure it out. And then it got like, it was like a portal, right? And then the portal closed, and everyone was like, "What was that?" And no one figured it out the first time the portal appeared. And then either the next day or the next week? Would you remember what the...
So it was basically like people had found in the files that there was a catalyst for an exotic sniper that was called Black Spindle in Destiny 1.
Okay, what is a catalyst? Just real quick.
Oh, sorry. A catalyst is essentially it's essentially a pack-a-punching something, right?
So there's a pack-a-punch version of this gun.
Yeah. And pretty much people had data mined that like this thing existed in the game, but nobody found it for a while. And then randomly somebody's doing what's called a public event. I guess it would just kind of be like a world event, like a small little activity that you can do in like a larger world. Somebody was doing that, and then they killed an enemy that was like way away from that public event that only spawned during that public event. And so they killed the enemy, and then all of a sudden this portal that when you walked up to it just had question mark, question mark, question mark. And you interacted with it, and it brought you into this like brand new space with a 20-minute timer and no direction on where to go. And you had to like find where to go, how to solve it. There's like a narrator that's like telling you that like you shall drown in the deep. And then all of a sudden you're doing puzzles and you're killing enemies and bosses against really hard bosses. And the reward was the exotic sniper rifle.
And they didn't advertise this.
No,
this just
not at all.
Appeared in the game. And so that's why I think people like initially were jumping in and they're like, I don't know, because it's sort of a maze almost. Like you really don't know where you're going, and there's a lot of dead ends and a lot of red herrings and stuff. So people were jumping in and just getting nowhere. And obviously, eventually, it got to a point where someone within the time limit managed to path their way through the whole thing, get to the end encounter, start the end encounter, beat it, and then get their reward. Yeah. But then there was a thing, if I recall correctly, where if you went back and did it the next week, it would like level up more, right?
Yeah, so kind of, it was more like there were secret chests in there, and there was like extra little steps that could get you the catalyst, get you the pack-a-punch. And you had to beat it all 3 weeks with like different modifiers. So there was like this type of enemy or like this type of shield will do more damage. So if you had what's called an arc weapon, it's just like think of it like an electric weapon.
Yep.
If you had one of those, it does more damage in here. It wasn't like insanely different, but they did do that for a different exotic mission that came out a year later. So like, that one's called 0 Hour, and that one, that one's a whole different rabbit hole in and of itself. It's an awesome story though, man. It's so good. Like, now you're reminding me like of the things that I liked in the game, or that I liked in the game, and not the things that I dislike. And it's making me like I'm happy, but like at the same time.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Because over the years, I've played some Destiny, right? I haven't grinded it out the entire time, but I've had little pockets where I've jumped in, and stories like that, I still to this day am stunned that Treyarch have not emulated and replicated, because I think they're so incredible. And
it's just a gold mine, and Treyarch is so good at putting secrets into little tiny things, like little fan service Easter eggs, side quests, main quests. They've been so good at it. It's like, how is this not evolved more?
Yeah. So let's talk about how that could evolve with Treyarch, right? So we talked a little bit about the idea of, you jump in, you're playing Liberty instead of Terminus. You've decided that that's the map you're going to play. And maybe initially it's got this hard mode, first 24 hours, it's double health zombies, and you're limited to pack 2. And you have obviously the Easter egg quest enabled, and at the end of the Easter egg quest, if you do it in the first 24 hours, you get a calling card or something like that. What then would you say would be the next logical step for Treyarch to really amp up the hype around that whole thing? Like, for example, does Bungie ever stream like themselves watching the creators, or like do they ever do they sort of lean into the fact that they are watching? Is the Bungie account in the chat of the creators while they're streaming? Like, how do they kind of participate, if you will, during the hunt itself? Do they do much of that?
So they'll do trailers, and they'll announce that World's First is happening. Twitch Rivals does do a stream of it. Now, not to sound shameless here, but I also do a thing called Raid Zone, where like essentially we look at all the different POVs, and we follow who's in the lead. Now, because it's been so competitive and so tight knit, what a lot of people have voiced their concerns over is that a lot of the streams will block the buffs on the screen, the debuffs on the screen, like everything that can give any other team that may be watching and scouting like that little extra advantage. So like it's gotten to the point where like we'll be watching and somebody will be zoomed into just their face while they do the raid, and people in the chat are like, hey, zoom in on his eyes, you can see a reflection of the raid boss, right? And like it's gotten to that point because it's very competitive. Only one team can get World's First, and if you're at like a puzzle encounter that really requires you to like go to Discord and like sketch things out on Paint, and all these other things, like you want to make sure that information is covered. So people have kind of taken issue with the fact that like you can't listen into the huddle, but Bungie, in terms of what they kind of respect, is like they watch, but they don't stream themselves watching.
Okay.
They have like they're like Twitch Rivals does an event, I do an event, and then also Bungie will go into, like, for example, in the last race, one of the lead community managers messaged me privately on Twitter to actually send it was like 17 copies of the final shape with deluxe edition that I could just give away out of
Awesome.
nowhere. So like
Hell yeah.
they do some fun stuff with that, but it's not like, okay, Bungie's majorly streaming this. They just kind of advertise like World's First is out, and then like it's so cool because it's like when a team wins, they'll do this thing where it's like we're hearing stories that a team has won. We're verifying information. It's like setting it up to HQ. It's so funny.
Damn, I can't imagine the like the hype there must be if they're doing trailers around it specifically, like around the fact that there's going to be this massive race.
Yeah.
Zombies is just the extent to which Treyarch goes down that path is basically to maybe tweet saying the Easter egg is now live sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a tweet, right? And I love the fact that they've also supported your show in showcasing all of the different like raid points of view and like where each team is and stuff. I think that's so cool. I've got two questions. One is, you ever considered doing that in Zombies?
Oh, I really want to do it in Zombies. I like really want to do it for at least for Terminus, right? Like I feel like Terminus has been agreed upon to be like the bigger of the two.
This is the thing though. I think based on how the Zombies community behaves, I think that it's maybe a little different to Destiny. I think, let's say there are two Destiny raids that came out at the same time, which is essentially what's happening here, which is very weird to think about.
Yeah.
But let's say that happened. I think in Destiny, you'd have a team that would pick map A or raid A, and they would just try and be first on raid A, and they wouldn't even consider the idea of jumping to raid B just because raid B was getting progress.
Right.
But in Zombies, like for example, with the release of Black Ops 4, people were all over the place, like playing 9 one day, Blood the next day, Voyage the next day. Like I literally was playing, I think I was playing a load of Blood when Black Ops 4 came out. And then Smart Guy was like, hey, do you want to jump onto 9 for a bit? And I was like, sure. And then I was world first for 9. And it was our second time ever playing the map together. And we just did it. I figured the step out that everyone was stuck on. We just made it through. But like, we just jumped onto it that day. So like that sort of stuff, I think in Zombies is a lot more likely. So what might happen is if you were doing, you said it was called Raid Zone, right? Yeah. So if you were doing an Easter egg zone, you might end up in a scenario where you have 16 viewpoints, for example. Half of them might randomly just switch over to the other map and then like switch back. Like it might be pretty chaotic. I don't know.
It's not like just one. That's something that I've definitely heard of with Black Ops 4, that they just dropped so many maps at once that it was like, I mean, I can't even imagine how it was for you.
Yeah.
Like it must have been so overwhelming.
Yeah. Very overwhelming.
But I think if it were to be like either an Easter egg zone or like zombie zone or something like that, I think what I would want to do is like create a trophy and actually give the first place team something that is physical, that like actually is, you know, promoting something really cool. Because like there's that crossover or that like bridge between real life and in game, I think should get acknowledged. There's so many cool stories of Easter egg worlds first and like the puzzle solving side of things that I don't think get enough credit. I think a lot of it's, you know, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? But not enough like, how did you solve this?
Yeah.
How did you solve that? Like, I feel like that part needs to have some sort of acknowledgement, because that's the coolest part for me as a player. That was my favorite part of Zombies.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's obviously a lot of questions about it that I've been asked over the years. Like people all the time are like, how the hell did you solve the Der Eisendrache Easter egg? Like, how did you do that? Or like whatever map it might be. And I've been lucky enough over the years to be first in enough Easter eggs where like there's a bit of a pattern there. And so some people will say to me like, this just doesn't seem possible. Like what's going on? But there's always a unique story with every map. It's always some unusual twist and turn in the narrative of how it all happens. One team crashes, another team accidentally glitches a step out, another team has they have to restart because someone lags out. Like it's all these sorts of crazy stories going on, right? So I'd love to see a little bit more focus on that in Zombies in terms of like the hunt live
It would be cool.
getting some attention. So I encourage you to do it for Black Ops 6. I think it would be awesome. I also am curious, in Destiny raids, do you think, because I think you said the longest one was 18 hours to first finish, is that right?
Oh, actually, the longest one just happened. Let me verify the exact time, but
Okay.
it was the most recent raid that actually.
Oh, that took the longest to finish.
Oh yeah,
Damn.
that one was the longest one. It was 18 hours 59 minutes 41 seconds was the final time
Okay.
on this one.
So, do you feel like it would be unfair to say that because Zombies Easter eggs have historically, some of them have taken longer to solve than that, does that mean that Zombies Easter eggs are harder?
Ooh. Okay. Yes and no. I think harder in the ways of like a lot more obscure in some of the steps,
Yeah.
like a lot less kind of hand-holdy in some ways, but in some ways I think they're easier. I'll put it this way, right? With Destiny, you are in a space that the like let's say there's a lock and you have to work together to form the key for that lock, right? But Destiny does a job of, okay, when you hold out your ghost, for example, like when you press tab or when you press the back button on a controller, like you pull out your ghost, there's like a small text sort of like, we need to open up that door, right? It's like in text, it'll say like, find a way to open up the door. And then as you're doing the puzzle, there's sound design. Like there's like a gong or something that will go off, or there's like a visual design. There's like a very bright light kind of over here that like at least gives you hints of like, okay, I clearly need to use item 1, 2, and 3, right? Like X, Y, and Z. I need to use these items to do something in the room. I just don't know what that something is. So, but it's in such a small space. Whereas Zombies, it's like, okay, here's the mode. Go find the underlying main story Easter egg here. But there's also side things, and there's also this that could deter you away from doing that. Or like there's not as much kind of direct player feedback in Zombies as there is in Destiny. And I think because of that, Destiny overall finds itself to be a little bit easier than Zombies. But I think that if Zombies kind of followed a format of like very direct player feedback, I think it would be easier. But there is times where Zombies has been easier to solve Easter eggs, like all the stuff that I'm covering at the moment with like Transit and Die Rise. Like Transit, it's pretty straightforward, and like Maxis and Richtofen both kind of tell you exactly what to do without telling you. Like, you know, you can shoot the turbine and then Richtofen's like, think you need a little bit more power on that one, right? Like there's direct player feedback. But in Destiny, like if you do something wrong, you might just die because it's like, oh yeah, that's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different in that way. But I think in general, Zombies just, it's a little bit more obscure, and I think that leads to the difficulty.
Okay. I guess the thing that I always sort of have seen Destiny raids as is it's essentially just, it's an Easter egg pulled out of the Zombies mode, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
It's just the Easter egg steps. There's nothing else.
Yes.
And if you were to actually do that with all of these Easter eggs, they would be solved in 5 minutes for a lot of them, right? Like many of the steps they're only difficult because of the other randomness around the Easter egg that happens in the zombie sandbox.
Yeah.
And that's actually something I'm really curious to see the implications of with Terminus specifically, because about a month ago, or maybe at this point it's been longer, I got to play Terminus early. And when I played Terminus, the Treyarch team said, just to give you a heads up, they're not active in this build, but in the full version of the map on launch, it's got potentially the most side quests we've ever done.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I'm here immediately thinking, okay, most side quests ever. That means that we're going to be trying to solve the main quest Easter egg, and we're going to have the most red herrings ever, where we could go down the wrong track and end up distracted on something that actually just turns out to be a side quest before having to come back and solve the main stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to go. I feel like there's room for of chaos there, but it's very much that zombies formula compared to the Destiny one of just giving you like almost like a lab environment to just Easter egg inside of. Which part of me loves the idea of, but then part of me is also like, I like the chaos, man. But within that, a question I would put to you is, as someone that knows a lot about zombies, but also has an encyclopedic knowledge about Destiny, guided mode is coming to Black Ops 6 Zombies, where a few weeks after launch, Treyarch will toggle on a playlist option in the game menus where you can load in to Terminus or Liberty Falls, and it will quite literally give you mission objectives on the side of the screen to walk you through the Easter egg. And yeah, it's weird. They've never done this before. Do you think, just from high level, I guess you're hearing this for the first time maybe, do you think that sounds like a good thing or a bad thing? Or what's your initial 30-second read on it? I'm curious.
I don't think it's inherently a bad idea, because I feel like a lot of people that play zombies are in one of two boats, right? They either engage with it, like to the point where they love it so much that they want to find more and dig underneath that.
Yep.
Or they're like, I played it a couple times when I took a break from multiplayer, I took a break from the campaign and had some fun with friends, but I don't really see myself playing it that deep. I think as the first map for Black Ops 6 and kind of a hopeful somewhat of a new era for zombies, I hope at least I hope good direction new era is what I'm hoping. But in somewhat of a directional shift, I actually don't think it's a bad idea to leave it as an option, because then they can build out from that, right? Because there's so many people. I bet if you were to look data-wise, there is probably, you would probably know.
It's 95% did not complete. The example map is D Machine, launch map of Cold War. 95% did not do the Easter egg.
So I think if you're Treyarch, you probably looked at that data and you went, well, we want more people to engage with this because we want to do this, but only 5% of our players are doing the Easter egg, right? And that's the first map. That's a launch map. So then that means even less are going to do later ones, right?
So just with that, pausing you there for a second.
Yeah.
What if Bungie did the same thing? Do you think that would make sense? Would that work? Would that be, I mean, is it even applicable? Because in Destiny, you kind of don't have an option to not do the raid because the raid's got all the good loot behind it.
Yeah,
like, would it ever work?
I think it could work in Destiny because Destiny has a lot of, and I'm sure Zombies has the same way, a lot of Sherpas that will go in and guide you through how to do the raid the same way that I'm sure there's a lot of people that have, there's been people that have guided me through some of the Easter eggs that I missed out on or like refreshed me on them. I actually think that Bungie has, in a way, done that with, they have a thing called Fireteam Finder, where you can go in and put in different like filters to find a team that's best for you for what you're looking for. And they have like a guide filter, like, hey, I need somebody to Sherpa me through this raid, right? So they've kind of built in something like that without direct in-game, like, you have to do this, you have to come here. Do they say like if there's like a navigation arrow, like literally guiding you to where to pick up something?
I think it's going to like highlight parts that you need to pick up. It's going to do those sorts of things.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
I don't hate it as an option though, because I think once World's First is done and once the first set of guides are out, having like the direct in-game guide might actually create like conversation for like the community to look at it and go, well, like maybe Milo, maybe you look at like one of your guys, you'd be like, well, I put that step out of the order that Treyarch wanted me to do. Right? So like, it's not a bad idea, but I could see where a lot of the hardcore Zombies fans are turned off by that idea. I could see that.
So let me throw you an idea here and get your sort of Destiny take on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and think, so I've not done all the Destiny raids by any means, but I've done,
I change that one day.
Yeah, man. I loosely remember Last Wish.
Yeah.
And midway, actually, you know what? I changed my mind.
Okay.
Let's talk about the final encounter of Scourge of the Past.
Oh, that raid's not in the game anymore, but sure.
Yeah. So for context, and this is from vague memory, so you might have to correct me where I go wrong here. But for context, basically, in Scourge, in the final encounter, there is there are 3 areas of the map that have they have like symbols in the areas, like there's like triangles and circles and squares, or am I already wrong?
Yeah. No, you're correct.
So imagine 3 different zones which are quite far away from each other. It's not like you can run there in 5 seconds. Like they're quite far away. Mm-hmm. There's it's basically not safe outside because there's like a massive tank thing, right?
Yeah, there's like a giant mech.
Yeah. So imagine just a big ass mech hunting you down, and you are on are they called Sparrows? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're on your Sparrow and your teammates are on their Sparrows, and you're sort of like zooming around on the Sparrows trying to dodge the mech and dodge all the enemies and stuff, while doing something with these shapes, right? And there's I think it's 3 shapes: triangles, circles, squares in each of the areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And straight away, even just trying to explain this out loud, it's pretty wordy, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine in a raid guide, it's probably pretty wordy in there as well. Yeah. And I mean, just close the explanation for me. What is it that you do with the shapes? Remind me. You have to. Yeah. Do you enter them in a certain order or something?
So there's an enemy that you need to go find. Basically, one player is watching this like big projection map that's on the ground when you first walk in.
Yeah.
Another player is like killing enemies around the arena. That's going to be a problem. And also the boss has like little shield parts on him. So that player is sniping the shield parts off of the boss. And it lowers the shield, right? And then the other members of the team, because it's a 6-person team. So 2 and 2 are going to where the map player is calling out where a special enemy is that you need to like punch the chest and the back to break its shield and then kill it. That drops a buff that then they need to take to one of those 3 stations, right? So like if I kill the enemy and a square buff drops, but you're like, oh, square's on the bottom right, go over there. Then I go to bank that. Once that's filled up all the way, like that charge station, it spawns a giant tank. Then you shoot the boss. The boss opens up its stomach, which reveals an enemy that then you can do critical damage to. And then the whole team, this is like the kicker part, you have to form a triangle in and of yourself.
Oh, I forgot about that.
What buffs you have. So if you have the circle buff, these things will just like pop onto you when you shoot the tank at the boss. When you have the circle buff, you'll stand one position, triangle and square. It doesn't matter what order. The community made a big meme that like it's cap, ACP, whatever order, right? And you stand in that buff, like kind of triangle, because if you're out of order or you're too close to a different buff, you actually shock each other and die. But if you stand in that perfect kind of synergy, you get a buff to do extra damage to the boss, and then you shoot it to death.
Sure. So it's chaos, right?
It's chaos.
It's chaos.
It's chaos. It's chaos.
I don't know what the Destiny community thinks of Scourge, but as it's the only one I have sub 24-hour clear on. Does the community love it overall?
Oh, the community overall loves it. Yeah.
Okay. Hell yeah. So this is a could you give me a zombies map that is like an analog to in terms of like people's rankings? Is it top 3? Is it like a DE and Origins type thing, or is it like maybe it's like an Ancient Evil? It's like a strong top 5 to top 10.
I'd probably say it's an Ancient Evil. It's a strong top 5. Like it sits somewhere between like 5 to 10.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So if we're thinking about this as an Ancient Evil, that means it's a beloved raid, right?
Yes.
And that step for me when I was doing it in game was so much fun. Bear in mind, when I was doing it in game, it hadn't been solved yet, right? So I was trying to figure it out just as much as everyone else was trying to figure it out. And then when it got solved, it's not just like that's how you do it. Okay, the next attempt, I get it done. It's this whole logistical operation to put everyone in the right places, to learn your role, to learn how to swap roles if someone's not good at a certain thing, or if someone keeps dying in a certain area or whatever. And that happens a lot during that encounter, because you can imagine somebody is sitting in that home base area, they're calling out strats for other people, obviously, like one run, somebody might die. Another one, somebody else might die. You have to change your strats on the go. So it's very chaotic, but the chaos is beautiful. It's lovely. It's a wonderful experience to be forced to meet that level of organization and to surpass it, right?
Right.
And my fear, this is a long point that I've been making, but I'm getting back to where we were.
Yeah.
My fear with guided mode is that by introducing this guided mode for Easter eggs, it means that Treyarch can never again implement an Easter egg step that is that complicated and that fun to do. The step has to be explainable in game by a little prompt that says, go here and hold square, or shoot this, or throw a grenade at that. And as soon as it's impossible for the game to possibly explain that player one needs to look at this and shoot this in here, but then wait for the other player, and if the other player dies, then you're going to need to actually rotate off for a little bit and go fix stuff there, and then go back to where the game can't do that. The game can't adapt in real time. So that means that we will forevermore have sanitized Easter egg steps in service of guided mode, leading the 95% through instead of the best possible experience for the 5%. And I think that's tragic. But I'm curious what your initial feelings are on that point.
I think that's super well said. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of that big payoff moment with like how a Destiny raid encounter would go, the way that we described Scourge of the Past.
Yeah.
In Zombies, to me is two different things, right? Like the payoff of Shangri-La and like seeing the meteor get shrunk down, that was one of the, like, as a team, when everybody's putting these things together, it's like that teamwork Easter egg step, right? The moon blowing up, the earth blowing up from the moon.
Yep.
That was like such a cool payoff moment. And Buried, for example, when you're shooting all the targets and you get all the perks that pop up on your screen, like, okay, yes, I didn't miss the mansion this time. Like, I didn't miss the lower window, right? Like, those things feel really, really satisfying. And that is the payoff that I think like translates so well to how clearing a raid encounter in Destiny is, because ultimately your execution is just as important as it is to solve the puzzle step.
Yeah.
Now, as far as watering it down for the 95%, that has happened in Destiny to some regard, where like raid racing on day one became easy last year, to the point where Bungie made this raid so much harder. Yeah, it was like 50% of the people that did Root of Nightmares was the raid, cleared it within the contest window of time.
50%.
Yes, it was just like such a crazy amount of people. Like I think Moist Critical made a video on it, and he was like, I raid every single Destiny 1 raid race day, and I have no reason that I should have beaten that raid. Like, he's like, I don't prepare at all, I don't do anything to be here, but I completed that thing, right?
Yeah.
And so Bungie looked at that and they went, okay, we're gonna make the hardest and best raid you guys have seen. And while it's not my favorite raid ever, I can say, like, critically and objectively, as best objectively as I can be, it is like the best raid in terms of like it built off of its predecessors. It made like such a grand final experience, and it was the longest raid. It was the longest raid in the entire series. So like they did what they set out to do. Now with a guided mode, the only thing that comes to mind is just the fact that there might be a building place to do stuff that's more difficult later. Because if you were to give 95% of players a more opportunistic look at, hey, this is how you'd complete this Easter egg step, this is how you complete the map.
Yep.
Then you could, for the next Easter egg, the main quest, make it so much harder, because, hey, like in a few weeks, you guys can check out guided mode anyway. Like, we care about these players who are going to be that 5%. Maybe that expands to 10%, and maybe they remove a guided mode eventually, because, hey, now enough people have done this that we can build off of this and we can make something even grander. But at least that's just like hopeful thinking. I don't have all the past experiences to know.
Yeah, I really hope that we get a scenario where, for example, the final DLC of the game doesn't have a guided mode.
Right.
I think the guided mode really, it goes against a lot of the design philosophy of, take Origins, for example, right?
Yeah.
The reason that Origins is as crazy deep as it is and difficult as it is because Jason knew there were going to be a couple of years between Origins and whatever was going to come next, which we didn't know at the time. And so he wanted to leave people with something to chew on, right?
Yeah.
And it's been so good that he did that, because Origins to this day is one of the most popular zombies maps ever. Yeah. It's revered both in terms of its design, but also just in terms of the fun that you can have on it and the challenge. You have people like Agent and Sinner recently just trying to get to round 50 on the map, having never played it before, and it took them like a week to just get there. And that is a cultural kind of, it's a culturally impactful challenge because of the fact that it's so difficult and it's notorious for that, right?
Yeah.
And so if we get to the end of Black Ops 6 and the final map is really bombastic and crazy, and it doesn't have a guided mode, but the other maps have done, and so they've pulled that 5% number up to be 30%, then hell yeah, that would be awesome.
Right.
My fear is just the consequence for that is that all those maps that do have the guided mode no longer can have anything so crazy like that Scourge mission where you are just, you're flying by the seat of your pants the entire time. And even just putting into words what you need to do is a challenge. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a really, really good thing. And I don't think Destiny would be Destiny without those encounters. Like if raids were not dependent on that much teamwork, then would they even feel like raids at that point? Would they just feel like more strikes, which you can just kind of
and that's what people criticize with Root of Nightmares, is that because, funny enough, and I covered this story as well, but the entire raid was beaten by a single player without dying once in Root of Nightmares.
What?
The entire raid, and it's like the raid that people are like, people started theory crafting that the raid wasn't even supposed to be a raid, that they last minute made it a raid. It was all sorts of mess, and I would say zombies, in the way that Destiny players look at a raid in terms of feedback for like the overall DLC, I think zombies gets that same treatment, right? Like, people look fondly on Black Ops 3, not because they love the campaign, even though there's been a lot of videos that I've been seeing pop up that people are starting to like love the campaign. I don't remember people loving the campaign, or like multiplayer was like cool, but I don't think people like loved it.
No.
But zombies, people at the beginning weren't sure on, but then they started to just love. And so Black Ops 3 is still a full price game on Steam if you wanted to go pick it up. And like, Black Ops 3 is still one of the most beloved games because there's so many good zombies maps, and there's the creator. There's like custom maps that people can make in Black Ops 3. So Black Ops 3 is widely regarded as one of the best Call of Duties of all time, because the maps and because the Easter eggs within the maps are so good. So like the wider community, Black Ops 3 is like the gold standard, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then the same thing goes for Destiny. Like major DLCs, the DLC, the review and the criticism, the raid is a big part of that. Like, what are the best DLCs that people have? It's like the Taken King, Rise of Iron, Final Shape, and Forsaken. And those are like the main ones people love, and those all happen to have the most notable raids in the entire series.
Yeah, you can kind of use it as an indicator, can't you, to like sort of know when it's going to be good. And I've said that for years, where I really truly believe that there's correlation between community love for a map and how long the Easter egg takes to solve. And it's not one-to-one. It's not a perfect correlation. But I think that any map which is beaten in just a handful of hours always kind of has something sort of against it forevermore in the annals of history. Right? Yeah, sort of thing. And I go back and forth a lot on, okay, so like Treyarch wants Easter eggs to be more inclusive. I think that's a good thing. Like, I think in general, more people doing Easter eggs is probably beneficial to just everything, all the parts of the ecosystem.
Right.
But if the way that they need to do that is they need to make it no longer feel like zombies, then instantly
it takes away from the whole idea.
Yeah, it's a cursed, it's a poison apple. Yeah. And I'm curious, do you think that You said it was, what was the name of the Destiny raid that got solved really, really fast? The Root
of Nightmares.
Root of Nightmares. So was that a reaction to them? Do you think that was them trying to make the raid more inclusive, like make it easier?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was a conscious design decision. It wasn't like an accident that it got solved that fast.
Yeah, I think it was a conscious design decision to then build, like, at least this is like the way that I see it.
Yeah.
They had just announced the Fire Team Finder was coming to Destiny. It was supposed to be a new feature to like bring everybody who doesn't want to go on like Discords and like have to go and find people to play with. Instead, it was, hey, here's this Fire Team Finder. Go and find a team and raid together. I think it was a way to promote Fire Team Finder.
Dude, that is literally the perfect example of what I'm saying about how I worry that having guided mode is going to mean that we get sanitized steps, right?
Yep.
With Fire Team Finder, they knew that Destiny raids were like obnoxiously difficult in terms of communication and stuff like that. And so arguably, again, I'm saying this without knowing the full details, but arguably, Root is as simple as it is because they knew they needed to release something where they could just push you through Fire Team Finder and it still work out. Whereas maybe Scourge, for instance, the end mission of Scourge, or the one in Last Wish, the bit in Last Wish that everyone finds really difficult, like it's in the middle of the raid, or it's like second last encounter or something, I can't remember. But like those types of encounters, I don't know, but maybe they just are still hell in Fire Team Finder, and so maybe Bungie was like, well, actually, we don't want it to be hell. We want it to just be a good experience. So they used the feature, and that's why it was the way it was. So the fear I have of a sanitized Easter egg step has already manifested in Root of Nightmares, and it's universally condemned as being too easy. So now I'm like, that doesn't bode well for Black Ops 6.
It's a legitimate fear to have. I feel like there's a big rabbit hole with Lightfall, the DLC that Root of Nightmares came with.
Okay.
And the whole thing that like Lightfall was supposed to be the end of Destiny, but then they added on the final shape a year before. So it was like, was Lightfall as a whole completely rushed? Like Fire Team, like there's a lot of different branches, but I think the Fire Team Finder one makes the most sense overall, just because, well, it's a new feature. It's a new thing that's like supposed to be inclusive for a lot of players.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think a guided mode, the only thing that guided mode has for it the only reason I say that I'm willing to give it a chance is because it's not there on launch day, that it's a few weeks after. So they're at least giving some nod to the Easter egg community and to the zombies community as a whole. Like, hey, we're going to try this thing after you guys have already beaten these maps and the main quests and the side quests.
Yeah. If it was at launch, I'd be
in tears.
Yeah, I'd be posting so many Liberty Balls videos, man. Like
the whiteboard would be getting a lot of work.
Oh, there'd be 15 of those things behind me right now. Like, I'd be doubling down on the whiteboard. Yeah, I like the fact that it's delayed. I also, something I actually raised to Treyarch, I warned them of this because I think it's a sort of maybe a flaw in their planning or something that could become a flaw, is they want normies to use guided mode to do Easter eggs.
Yeah.
But guided mode is not going to be there at launch. So what you're requiring a normie to be leaned into zombies enough to know that guided mode is going to be releasing, but not to be leaned into zombies enough to have actually done the Easter egg. And I think that suddenly means that the player base that you could be capturing, let's say it's 100% of the player base, or let's say it's 95%, sorry, because 5% already do it. If there's 95% of people that you could be capturing, I think the subset of that will be leaned in enough to be aware it exists, but not have already done the egg, is actually a significantly smaller number than 95. I think that's maybe another 5% or something.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get into true normie territory, they're not going to know that guided mode even exists because it's not there at launch. So they're not going to see it in the menu, and they're not going to notice it pop up later. And if it does pop up later, they're just going to skip past it because they want to go play Warzone. So I worry
don't give them ideas to put it there on launch. Let's not do all that.
Like, I don't want it at launch by any means, but like something I said to Treyarch is like, you're going to have to market this like it's a DLC. Like, you're going to have to make a huge deal over the fact that this exists. And if your marketing for it only reaches someone like myself, like a hardcore leaned in player, you've failed. You've completely failed. You need to reach everyone but me, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, it remains to be seen how they do on that. But I don't know. Like, do the raid race trailers that Bungie put out, do those get like a lot of attention? Do you feel like those go outside of the sort of super hardcore circles, or do they stay in the kind of pretty much in the tight knit circles only?
The raid race days, at least themselves, like, because the raid race trailers, they try to not show any of the raid like at all. So they'll show like streamer reactions in the trailers, and like maybe they'll show like a small bit of it, like they'll show like a landscape of like the distance. But there's a lot of like secrecy and a lot of like honestly security that has to go into one of those, because when you add stakes like that, the amount of data mining and the amount of like, okay, we're trying to like solve all this before the raid even comes out, and like, you know, basically like trying to get an edge over other teams. What ends up happening is like it becomes a big risk if they show a lot of stuff, because then the community gets really angry, because that's like the day that at least the hardcore community is like, this is our day. This is why we play Destiny. Right. It's like, imagine if zombies, every single map, the way that it was, and maybe still is to some degree, like, it's not just the story, it's like every part of the game changes fundamentally because the raid is here. It's having new loot, new armor, you know, mods, all this other stuff that comes with it. It's such a big event and such a big deal to so many people that Bungie takes like security measures. But to just show you like the impact of what raid racing is, on the raid day, for watching streams, there's like Twitch drops, there's like emblems that you can get in the game if you like gift subs to whatever stream you're watching. There's all sorts of like perks that a viewer can get, and so many people are watching that Destiny becomes the largest game in the world on Twitch, YouTube, any like Kick, whatever, any streaming platform. It gets up to like 500 to 600,000 viewers on the Twitch side alone. Like, there's a lot of people that will like tune in for the raid race, because there's a million reasons to be there for like a million people, right? Like, there's so many different reasons that somebody would want to tune in on that day. It is like the day. It's the most like respected day of Destiny that they get every single year. But yeah, they very much for trailer promotion keep it like, if it were Bungie, they wouldn't have shown like almost any of Terminus, right? Or Liberty Falls. Like, they wouldn't have shown almost any of it. They might have shown like, this is an exotic that's coming. Sure. And they might have shown like a picture, but they wouldn't have shown anything else.
It's honestly like, it makes my mouth water thinking of a world where we get Terminus releasing and we've not even seen gameplay of it yet. Like, as much as that's antithetical to like marketing purposes, and as much as I complained when that happened with Dead of the Night, I was not about it with Dead of the Night. But if we knew that they were doing it for those sorts of reasons, I just think like there's something, and also if they were leaning into the whole world first thing and stuff like that, that would just be so exciting, man.
It would be like Christmas like every time, because you would just be like, all right, waking up this morning, everybody's on, everybody's excited, we're about to open up the present that is the new map.
And to know that it was coming as well, because that was a problem that they had with Dead of the Night, is that the zombies community didn't have the expectation of having stuff held back in that way, and then a surprise drop or whatever. And so it meant that we had different expectations that were then missed, and so everyone was like, well, that sucks. But if Treyarch just framed it differently, and they were like, we have a map, and the map is one of the largest maps we've ever made, and it's got some of the most side quests we've ever made, and like, they could tell us about it in abstract terms, but just say, and you're going to see it for the first time on this date in 2 months' time or whatever, that would be so different to what they did with Dead of the Night. I think that would work so well. And I sadly think that they will just never do it. I mean, they show the bosses of the ends of the Easter eggs in the trailers these days.
In the trailers, yeah.
So, like, I think we're doomed. But with Bungie, can you go into a little bit more detail on what some of the other perks are that they set up. So they set up Twitch drops, I think you said.
Yeah.
How do those work exactly?
So if you watch a stream for 1 to 2 hours, you'll get something in the game for watching the stream.
And does it have to be watching a raid stream, or could it be any Destiny stream that day?
Oh, it would be anybody who signed up for Twitch Rivals. So anybody who is a part of the raid race in some way. Like for Raid Zone, for my side of things, I didn't actually race in that. I was watching all the POVs, but I still signed up for Twitch Rivals because they'll let anybody who just signs up for it get in. So like you and I, you could be playing zombies that day, but be in the Destiny directory and be like, all right, well, we're just gonna collect Twitch drops for you guys, here, right? Like, if you're signed up, you're signed up.
Okay, so the zombies equivalent of that then would be, and also I think drops are a thing on YouTube nowadays as well. So it would be for Treyarch to get in touch with these platforms and be like, hey, we're going to be having a big launch weekend, obviously. It's Black Ops 6. It's going to be one of the biggest games of this year. And we're going to have it not necessarily exclusively tied to Twitch Rivals, but we're going to have campaigns with you guys set up so that anybody watching a zombies stream or self-reporting to be streaming a zombie stream, is going to have, let's say, a weapon camo. Is that the sort of thing that it would be? Like a weapon skin type thing? Or,
yeah, probably. Or like a calling card.
Okay.
Something. Like maybe a charm on your weapon.
Okay, yeah, let's go with the charm. So there's going to be an in-game charm you can only get by watching those streams that day. Can you freaking imagine how big that would be for Call of Duty to do something like that? Like,
it would be insane.
Why is that not a thing already? I'm actually blown away that I haven't thought about this more. I think I've seen them doing some kind of drops for the beta. I think I saw something. So maybe they'll think about this at some point. But if you incentivized people to watch, so that's one part of what Bungie does. You incentivize them to play. That's another part of it, with the jackets and the stuff for completing in 24 hours, etc. Is there any incentive specifically to stream? I guess it's the extra viewers you get because you're incentivizing viewers, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there'd be incentive to stream because also, outside of, funny enough, this final raid and maybe the very infancy of raiding as a whole, like every single World's First has been streamed, and it just helps for some sort of verification. I mean, I know people very well that have even also built entire careers off of the fact that they've gotten World's First in a Destiny raid, and then they've really started making YouTube videos, guides, all sorts of different things, and next thing you know, they're full-blown YouTubers doing sponsored segments and stuff, so it's like the amount of it's almost like when Ash Ketchum was watching TV, and it's do you want to be the Pokemon master? It's one day, it's that level of things, right? If you get World's First in a raid in Destiny, of a raid that has that stature, and you really promote yourself, and people start making videos and stuff, they can build entire careers off of that. It's insane.
Damn, that's wild to think about, because in zombies, has anyone built a career off an Easter egg completion? I am trying to think, and I think the answer is no. I think that it sort of happened, with Nick, Star Wars Bob, and Liam when they completed the Moon Easter egg way back in the day, because Liam ended up going on to become a successful zombies YouTuber, and then his career evolved from there. But I also kind of think Liam was on that trajectory anyway, and I don't think Liam specifically really benefited on his YouTube from Moon in the way that Nick did. Nick really did in a much bigger way. And then since then, I can't really think of anyone that's sort of come out of the woodwork, got a World's First, and then it's catapulted them to new career levels of stardom, let's say.
Right.
But also, you're the historian here that tells all these stories. So you have been working through the zombies Easter eggs. Have you just basically started from the original Ascension and gone forwards, or?
So it's been a weird journey, right?
Okay.
I started with making a video just kind of on World at War and its maps and like how Easter egg infancy was there
Yeah.
in Darice. And I kind of built, so I put out a video on my Evan F 1997 channel. Then I posted it to my second channel because I was like, well, I'm not sure if I want to put zombies on this channel. And now I'm relaunching the series again. So there is some videos that are gonna be like World at War, and then there's Black Ops 1, which I know I've sent you a couple of videos there, and you can kind of see the vision of what I'm going for. And it's all of Black Ops 1 is done, and those are going to be releasing. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but maybe they're out by now, maybe they're not. And then Black Ops 2, I'm working my way through, but I'm gonna have to take a break because obviously Black Ops 6 comes out, and I want to cover. I would like to make a video on the world's first of the main Easter egg for Black Ops 6. I think because there's just, again, like we just talked about, that crossover, that moment, that big payoff in some of these Easter egg steps, and how insane it eventually gets as the series continues, and then some of the downturns, some of the upward trajectory, like back and forth. There's that crossover that I'm like, dude, I feel like the zombies community could be treated infinitely better, especially in the Easter egg category. Like, my God, there's so many great stories of these Easter eggs. Some of the greatest stories of like how people accomplish these things, funny incidents like lagging out or like old jank in the game that caused other teams to lose world's first. And I think that's been not really reported on. So I've been going through the Wayback Machine and trying my best and like and going through. I've seen some of your old videos on at least right now Transit, and it is funny because like I remember that glitch with the turbine. Like at the very end of the Transit Easter egg, you put like a turbine down outside of town, and it's like completely diagonal, floating in the air. And I'm like, that is such a nostalgic throwback to that glitch, you know?
Yep. Yeah, man. Wow. Yeah. Even you just saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, what the hell? Yeah, I think it's honestly so cool that you're doing that. And I think it's in some ways unfortunate that Treyarch hasn't kind of taken the initiative over the years to sort of platform those stories a little bit, like from their side. But I think the fact that you're doing it is awesome, and it'll probably be a better told story from you rather than through the sort of corporate mouth of Treyarch anyway. So probably sort of works out. But yeah, there's been some twists and turns over the years in zombies for sure. And I think you're going to unearth a lot of juicy stories there.
I've already unearthed some stories that I can't wait to tell, but you know, like at this point, I've talked to you privately about it. I'm not a drama person. If it relates to the story itself, I'll talk about it, but I'm not like on the zombie side just to be like, all right, let's talk about the juicy drama. That's not who I am.
Well, we can hope that maybe we end up getting a world where rather than the juiciness being drama in the future, maybe Treyarch will surprise us all and we'll get a last wish situation where we'll solve Terminus and there'll be a third map on disc and everyone will blow their minds and it'll be crazy. Who knows, right? Maybe awesome. They'll honor that first solve team with an in-game cutscene, or maybe there'll be some kind of special secret for them that no one's anticipating right now. I can only hope, and you've set my mind ablaze with ideas for what those things could be. And
dude, the next dungeon or raid that comes out, I'll message you on the release date, and you just got to tune in.
Is there actually, as an aside, are there gonna be more raids for Destiny? I kind of thought Destiny was over now. I'm not gonna lie.
So yeah, sort of yes, sort of no. Apparently tomorrow they're supposed to do like the future sort of live stream to go over what's coming. So I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
But I don't think they're gonna like kill their what is it called? Like kill their racehorse, kill their main horse. Like I don't think
that cash cow maybe.
Yeah, like I don't think they're gonna get rid of raids. They know that everybody who is a Destiny player to some degree plays Destiny, like not every single player, but majority of the base that plays all the time, or is their active player base, is there because they know that a raid is coming and they need to get as much loot and as many different roles on their loot to prepare for that next raid, to get their chance at Worlds first. That's why a lot of people play Destiny these days, especially, is just because they know that, oh shoot, a raid is coming in a few months. We have to get ready for it. We have to practice as a team. We have to do all this stuff. So
yeah, it's an interesting point. I guess if you took raids out of Destiny, a lot of Destiny's fundamental design funnel kind of stops working.
Agreed.
Because the raid is the pinnacle objective that you get to at the end of all of that grinding, and it's something hard that's meant to be really rewarding and make you feel like you didn't make a bad decision putting 100 hours into the game just to prepare for it, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Zombies has never had that feeling. Like, if you took Easter eggs out of Zombies, there is no, oh, I grinded Zombies to get good enough to play the Easter egg. Like, it would just be, okay, this is just a map that's got no Easter egg. It's just a high rounds map, right?
Right.
And the kind of contrast there is interesting because in Destiny, it's like the core conceit of the whole game. So it's no wonder that 90%, let's say, of the player base actively raid, like, or certainly the active player base, they're going to be raiding a lot to do those, to get that loot and stuff, because that's where the whole game funnels you to. And it makes me wonder, if 95% of people in Zombies are not doing the Easter eggs, does that mean that they can put a guided mode in, but people still aren't going to care because the rest of the game isn't funneling you to that objective as a pinnacle objective? It's like adding a campaign mission to the game. Why would people give a damn? Like, why would a campaign mission make them want to play the Zombies map more?
Yeah.
Maybe they're incomparable. I don't know. It's like trying to mix oil and water kind of thing.
You would kind of have to do something where at the end, like, I think the best way you could get everybody who doesn't engage in Easter eggs to engage with them is you would have to make it so it's like, hey, the way to get a brand new weapon that you can use in multiplayer is to complete the main Easter egg on Terminus, right? Like, you could, if you complete the main Easter egg on Terminus, it unlocks this SMG for multiplayer. Like, that would be the only way, I think, that would get everybody in.
Yeah, so as far as I understand it, there's going to be, like, weapon variants that are going to be accessed from completing the Easter egg. There's going to be some kind of mastercraft or blueprint, or I forget what they even call them these days, to be honest. I don't really pay attention to the microtransaction stuff. But so there's going to be something. And for example, in Modern Warfare Zombies, there was a really cool, like, bone collector sort of skeleton operator skin that you got from beating the sort of kind of Easter egg in the launch offering. So that was good. But my kind of cynical stance is, let's say you did that and it was in order to get a weapon for MP. I almost feel like it would make people angry because they would feel like they were having to do all this work in Zombies to just play the mode that they wanted to play, which was multiplayer all along. And they would then just need to continuously do that over the year to, like, try and continuously force those people into Zombies. And at that point, it's like, maybe you should just not be trying to convert those people into Zombies players. Maybe you should just leave them as multiplayer players and let the Zombies people be the Zombies people. But I don't know.
Maybe it's just my Destiny brain and, like, how everything in that game operates, where it's like PvP leans into PvE and then PvE leans back into PvP. But, like, my stance on it is very much that if you were to give a reason for more people to engage with the Easter egg outside of trying a guided mode, that would be kind of the only thing that would get a majority of the player base that plays COD to check out the Zombies Easter egg, right? And that would get it more eyes. Would it be artificial and would people be frustrated? Yeah, because I think that also does apply to Destiny. Like, there are people out there who play Destiny that are like, I hate that I have to go into the raid and get the exotic weapon because it's one of the best weapons for PvP, right? Like, there are people that feel that way, and I level with them, but at the same time, it's like, how else do you really get cross-pollination without forcing it to some way? Like, how else are you gonna get that? Like, other than, because, like, we could make the best map ever, and there would still be a large percentage of people that are like, yeah, I just don't really like zombies. Like, that can happen, right? But
that's
I
fair.
think Yeah, that might be like the only way at least I could think of. But I'm hopeful for Black Ops 6. Again, I haven't done a lot of the Easter eggs myself in like past BO2. I think we talked about this before. I'm not sure if we talked about this like during the recording, but
Yeah.
I haven't done any of the BO3 and onward Easter eggs, even though I've seen all of them.
Yeah, that's
So
so crazy, man.
it's crazy because it's like that's when my Destiny time started and my
Yeah.
new addiction was found. So like I'm gonna see what I'm gonna basically see a lot of your career and a lot of like growth in
Yeah.
your life through these maps in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's true. It really is. Yeah, and I mean, cherish that experience because it is so magical to be able to do it for the first time, and I am very jealous. I really am.
I'm excited. I got no words for it, man. I've played a little bit of some of BO3 and like some of the custom maps, and it flows really well. It feels nice. I haven't played any of BO4 and onwards, so
Oh, dude, to have not played BO3, what a magical experience you're about to have. I'm actually like grinning right now just thinking about how good a time you're gonna have. Well, it's been a pleasure talking today, and I think that the honorable thing to do, honestly, would be to end this podcast recording as soon as possible so that you can go play BO3. So
I agree.
that's exactly what I'm going to do. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'll drop links to your channels and stuff in the description as well so that folks can go check out some of those zombies videos that you're going to be posting once they're ready. Maybe they're already out by the time we post this. Yeah, thank you all for listening as well. Any final thoughts from you?
Just that you've been a great host. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day or night. Like, this has been an awesome experience, so thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, my pleasure. Everyone listening, thanks for being here. Drop a like on the video or something, do something, and I'll see you next time.